Hello and good evening. A advocacia internacional passa cada vez mais pelo domínio do inglês jurídico e pela compreensão dos desafios da imigração nos Estados Unidos. Quando se fala em construir carreira além das fronteiras, cada detalhe faz diferença. E hoje vamos explorar o que mais importa nos bastidores da imigração americana. Seja muito bem-vinda e muito bem-vindo à nossa live especial aqui no canal da Bilingual Minds. É um prazer tê-los conosco nessa jornada pelos bastidores do Direito Imigratório nos Estados Unidos. Meu nome é Simon, eu sou o diretor de cursos da Bilingual Minds e eu hoje vou atuar como anfitrião do live, junto com o meu co-host, o professor Dr. Fabio Schlichting, advogado empresarial no Brasil, e responsável pelos cursos de inglês jurídico aqui na Bilingual Minds. Esta live faz parte do nosso programa de conteúdo dos cursos de inglês jurídico, pensada especialmente para quem busca se aprofundar nos desafios, erros mais comuns, estratégias eficazes e, principalmente, no papel do inglês específico em todo esse processo. Aliás, se vocês quiserem se aprofundar no inglês jurídico, no espaço da descrição dessa live aqui no YouTube, deixamos um link para vocês conhecerem um de nossos cursos, o Fundamentos do Direito nos Estados Unidos da América. Nós temos a honra de receber uma convidada especial, diretamente de Boca Raton, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos, a doutora Larissa Salvador, advogada, referência em imigração nos Estados Unidos, fundadora da Salvador Law PA. A dinâmica da nossa live de hoje será uma conversa entre o Dr. Fábio e a doutora Larissa, conduzida em inglês, abordando temas relevantes sobre o direito imigratório para brasileiros que desejam morar, empreender ou trabalhar nos Estados Unidos. Se você está nos acompanhando ao vivo, aproveite o chat para enviar a sua dúvida ou comentário e poderemos responder suas perguntas ao final. E, claro, aproveite também para curtir a nossa live agora para que ela alcance ainda mais pessoas e depois fique à vontade para compartilhar esse conteúdo com colegas e amigos do meio jurídico. E, portanto, vamos então receber aqui nossos convidados, doutora Larissa Salvador, Dr. Fabio Schlichting, and let's turn the language to English. I will start by asking you to introduce yourselves and say a little bit about your work, about the areas that you encompass, the scope of your law work in your respective fields. Can we start with Dr. Larissa Salvador, please?
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure being here with you guys today and to have this opportunity of speaking to all of you that are connected. It's different speaking in English to Brazilians, and especially about immigration, which is the area that I work in here in the US. I have a law firm, which is in Boca Raton, Florida. I have worked in immigration for over 10 years, and my law firm also deals with personal injuries, but we focus mostly in car accidents. I've been doing this for, like I said, almost over 10 years. It's an area that I'm very passionate about, especially because my family went through the process of immigration here in the US. So it's always a pleasure being able to talk about the topic with other Brazilians, especially the ones that do plan on coming to the US so that they can have a smoother transitioning than we did over 25 years ago.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Larissa. And now, Fabio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fabio. I work with corporate law. I live here in Sao Paulo. I also had a few law firms here in Brazil, in the south of Brazil. And basically, I work with contracts and also investors from the States who come here, who want to buy property here. And pretty much that's what I do. I've been working as a teacher of, English for a long time. Simon knows me. We've worked together for so long. That's pretty much it.
Very good. Well, we have put together a list of 10 topics or 10 questions that I would like to propose to you too, so you can answer and discuss and debate. And we have the chat window open for our viewers to write in any questions that they may have. In principle, we will try and answer those questions at the end of those questions. But if anything comes up that is relevant for the topic we're talking about at the moment, I will put them to you so you can give your 2 cents notice, okay? So let's go ahead and start with our first topic or first question. And we made it on purpose about what we do at Bilingual Minds. We work on preparing people to face international work, to become bilingual as much as possible. So my question to you is, how important is English proficiency in that kind of work? And specifically now in Larissa's case, talking about immigration law. And is it really that bad if your English is poor, if your English is very basic? Is it an obstacle for getting a work visa or even a permanent visa in the United States?
So my dad, and I don't know if everyone thinks this way, but I do. When we came from Brazil to the US, I was 11 years old. And one of the things that my dad said to me, he said, Larissa, if you're in the US, you learn to speak as an American. Okay. Not only do you learn to speak as an American, you will learn as many languages as possible, because learning languages opens doors in the job market. Regardless if you are planning on staying in Brazil, if you're planning on moving to the US, or if you're planning on going anywhere in the world, knowing more than one language, and especially English nowadays, makes all the difference for your chances of getting a job, okay? And it does make a difference even when you go to an interview at the consulate for a basic tourist visa. Being able to communicate with the officer is definitely a plus, because when we talk about getting visas, sometimes it's not just about the law, especially when you're talking about tourists. Americans tend to be slightly on the snob side when it comes to visa issuance. So it's nice when you're able to connect with the officer, because they do have a quota. They have supreme power on approving or not a visa. And when you're able to speak to them in their language, that does kind of soften up their walls, and that approval becomes more possible than if you don't speak English. So I would definitely say, especially in the times that we're living in today, it's absolutely important for you to know English more than just the book is on the table.
Yes, that's huge. Thank you, Larissa. Any thoughts on that, Fabio?
Well, I totally agree with Larissa, right? The thing about being able to go to a country and speak the language, right? It also shows a lot of respect to the country, because you think about going to the States, for instance, and live there or work there for some time, right? Why haven't you started studying the language before? Or if you start studying right now, you might find some obstacles, of course, right? As you said, right? Like in an interview, the consulate, or also if you think about the companies you're going to, right, you can get better positions if you speak fluent English. So I totally agree with you when it comes to getting different positions or getting better opportunities, right? Proficiency is a thing.
It definitely opens doors. When I was in high school, one of the things, because of what my dad said, I learned Spanish was actually my second language. I already knew Portuguese. I learned Spanish. Then I learned English. And then I learned French and Italian. And you won't believe how, especially in my line of work, dealing with immigration, how much that opens the opportunities of even the line of clients that I can have. So I'm not just dealing with Americans. I'm not blocked to just dealing with Brazilians. I can literally deal with all of South America. I can deal with people from Spain. I can deal with Italians. I can deal with French and a lot of the colonies, in the Caribbean. So it definitely makes a huge difference.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Let me ask you something, thinking about Brazilians now. There's this idea that the green card, it's like the holy grail of Brazilians who want to go to the United States to work, to live, etc. What would you say? Is it a real solution, or can that be a trap for Brazilians? What can you tell us about that?
Ultimately, it depends. I think that's the most lawyerly answer that you can give. It depends, right?
Yeah.
If they want to live in the US, yes, the green card is the way to do it, because without the green card, you can't get to citizenship. There's no other path to citizenship but to go through a green card. Now, if your interest, for example, is just to invest in the US, there are many other ways for you to invest without having to live here. And a lot of people that actually have money that might not necessarily want to live here, but they want to invest, it's not the greatest idea, because you might end up on a double taxation situation if you don't plan that accordingly. So a lot of Brazilians, they live Brazil thinking, oh, I'm going to live in the US, but they don't think about the process that it entails to actually make that happen in the most legal way, so that they don't have these issues with taxes. They don't have issues with, oh, I got to the US with my tourist visa, but now I don't know what categories do I fall under. Do I even fall under any category to actually take me to a green card? So I wouldn't say necessarily that it's a trap, but the idea of it by itself is a problem if you don't care to further look into the actual process to get to the green card.
Right.
I also have a little question to you, Larissa, regarding this topic. Right? I don't know if you read that in the news. There was this Canadian man. He had the green card and he lived in the States for, let's say, around 20 years. He crossed the border with his family to go on vacation. On his way back, right, they checked his, his background, and they noticed he had, a little criminal problem in the past. He was not allowed into the country. So the kids could get in because they were already American citizens. But since he was born in Canada and he had this bad background, right, he was not let in. So especially right now in this new situation, right, this new government, right, of course, they always had the sovereignty of, allowing anyone who wanted into the country. But right now that things go a little bit more specifically according to the new politics, right? How did you feel in terms of, okay, so the green card was already something that, okay, that made me American 100%. They could enter the country anytime I wanted to, but not anymore. So how different is it now? What do you notice about that right now in the States?
So one of the biggest issues is because people didn't understand that a green card is not a free-for-all. So the policy has always existed, but as we know, the politics get applied according to whoever is in power at that time. Mm-hmm. So the issue right now is he might have had an issue criminally years and years and years ago. He probably didn't know that when he got stopped with his green card, all he had to do was refuse to sign the abandonment of the green card. Why? They would have to actually give him a notice to appear in court, and he would have the opportunity to defend himself. But because of the literal chaos that we've been having with immigration in the last 6 months, a lot of people are so taken aback by the situation that they start signing papers. Mm-hmm. Once they start signing papers, it ends up that the reason why they're not entering is not because the green card doesn't give them the right to, it's because they have signed away their green card. So now, because I was so scared and I don't have the information, I have given up my green card because some dude that most likely did not go to graduate college has gone through some short time period training and is telling me that I can't get in because of something that I did 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this lack of information has caused a lot of problems for people that have green cards. And they have had issues 20, 30 years ago, but now they're being stopped because of the current policy. So if these people don't understand that they can actually fight this in court, especially cases they're super old and the law has changed and everything else, if they don't have that information, they're literally giving up their green cards for no reason. Wow. But it has been happening a lot.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, that reminds me, and this is something that coincidentally we were talking about before getting live. How does the culture of each country, the nature of people's behavior affect that kind of decision? I mean, does it play a part? I'm going to give you a very vulgar, maybe, example, which is the way that Brazilians call their unique jeitinho, and how many times, as we know, in countries above the equator, it is not so well regarded, so well accepted. How do you perceive that?
So it's not welcome. Americans, it's not that they don't do things wrong, that they don't have the American way, the American jeitinho, but it's on a different level, right? So especially when it comes to, for example, something super basic, taxes, okay? I have to deal with a lot of taxes when it's time to apply for certain kinds of green cards. And one of the biggest issues that I have is that when I get the taxes, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why did your accountant file you as a head of household, but you're married and you have children, and she has put your spouse as a dependent on your, and they're like, oh, because she said that way I will pay less taxes. Oh. And I'm like, girl, that's a problem. That's a big problem, because here the IRS, which is the department that deals with the Internal Revenue Services, that deals with taxes, they'll come for you. Like even Martha Stewart, who was a big, TV cook celebrity in the US, she had to do time because of tax evasion. Wesley Snipes from Blade, I love that movie, but he was just recently released because of tax evasion. So things that, because of maybe for example, the way things happen in Brazil, that forces people to do things a certain way to survive, they don't fly here because the situation is not the same. So it's not looked the same way. So as far as those kind of cultural differences, or even, for example, something as simple as how you dress to go to an interview at a consulate, that matters. Because sometimes the person can be filthy rich and they just want to go to Disney. Like, I have the money. I just want to meet, Mickey and Minnie, and it doesn't matter. I don't care who judges me. Well, sir, I have news for you. As far as asking for a visa, you should care, because the way that you present yourself is the way that the interview is going to start. So it does matter. And those differences, being aware of those differences, will also make a difference on the outcome of, different matters in the US. For
sure. Fabio, go ahead.
Larissa, I don't know if you agree with me, but I always try to think of a country like a house. So I have a house, I have my rules. So if I look at you, well, you could come into my house, look like us, you look clean, you look decent, you respect us, you respect our rules, you come here for lunch, dinner, whatever, you can come in, that's not a problem. Even if you come here and want to sell me something, why not? You can come here, sell me something, right? It's not a problem. And many times, what I notice, not only from Brazilians, but for people from different cultures, right? When they go, let's say, to the United States, okay, it's a very cosmopolitan country, great. It's like a melting pot. Yes, it is. But you have to try to add to the culture, bring something nice to the country, and not bring your problems, your issues from your own country, because I believe that's not the American spirit. That's not what Americans want, right? So if you have something to say, something to show, something good to the culture, you're definitely welcome. Of course, you have to have the requirements for to get into the country. If it's, let's say, the time or the money to enter and to go to Florida and spend some time, go to Disney World, okay, amazing. If you're just an investor, you want to invest in, as you mentioned before, a household in the States, why not? respecting all the taxation of the United States, of course.
Absolutely.
Great, welcome. You can, be here, you can stay here for as long as the American government wants you to stay here, right? And if you compare like the way things are going now and the things they were in the past, as you mentioned before, Larissa, there's nothing new. It's just a different policy, different politician, but they're always entitled to do this before, right? But
Yes.
it's just being stricter now, and you just have to respect the law. The Brazilian,
Yes.
the ways to get around, right? They don't really work, especially right now.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the biggest debates that we've been having since the beginning of the year, and this is not about politics, but it's about viewing what it is for what it is. And part of the problem that a lot of people were complaining is the closure of the border, right? Everybody's like, how can you close the border? What about the people that actually have, the need to enter the US for asylum purposes and refugee purposes and all these other things? And the best way, especially as an immigration attorney, because people think that if you are an immigration attorney, you're a bleeding heart. But some of us are able to look at things logically and say, hey, this is what it is, and this is not. And I remember having a conversation with my dad. When I first came to the US, we hired an attorney that took our money, didn't file our case, and we stayed illegal in the US for over 10 years. And it was the worst time, because as an 11-year-old going into, being a teenager, everything is confused, and you don't know if you're actually going to be able to go to school, or you don't know if you're going to be able to get to your goals. But my dad always made very clear to me, he said, okay, we may know that we are in part good people, but understand that the federal government has the right to kick us out if they find us, because we are not in the condition necessary to stay. So when this whole ordeal started this year, part of what we were talking about is exactly this example of a house, right? What happens? I'm from Rio. So the place where I'm used to living, I used to literally watch gunfights in my window, right? Watching the tracer bullet literally go from one side to the other. And the explanation is, Larissa, imagine you have your house, okay? And your friends and your family, when they want to visit you, they call you, they knock on your door. And then there are some people that are close enough that they can come and just jiggle the doorknob and come in, depending on the level of, friendship or relationship that we have. Now imagine, okay, you are, and I was from Complexo do Alemão in Rio, and imagine that the police is doing a raid, okay? And imagine that in the middle of all of this, there are both cops and bad people and your neighbors rushing into your house to try to take cover. Are you going to be happy in that situation? Is it going to be okay for you that the cops, the robbers, and your neighbors that you didn't invite to your house are in your house? And it's not about them being good people or bad people, or you don't even know if they're good or bad. It's just about, it's my house. It has nothing to do with you, and it has all to do with the sovereignty of the place where I live. And I believe that a lot of people kind of lost touch, because in a general way, for a long time, people just think that the US is obligated to allow everyone to come in and then figure things out. And do I agree with everything that's going on? Absolutely not. But do I think that it's absolutely wrong? Not really, because something needed to be done, because all sorts of people were coming in the border and they were having zero way of filtering who is really good, who really needs help, and who's up to no good.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. That was a shocker. But yeah, but that's important. And that reminded me of something else that I think we're very sensitive about it here in Brazil. Well, not only in Brazil, but we are, which is something that comes up when we're at the point of being evaluated for a visa. I think, I don't know if this is a little bit of paranoia on our part, but do you think, or have you heard of any kind of surveillance of social media posts and how the things that people post would affect their immigration process?
So social media has always played a role in immigration in the US.
Oh.
Now, currently, it plays a bigger role when you're trying to get a student visa because the consulate is mandating that you have your profile open to the public so that it can literally be checked. And what are they looking for? They're looking for your behavior toward hot topics, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want people that are involved in anti-American talks. They don't want people that are involved with terrorist organizations or what they believe to be terrorist groups. So that has been pushed really hard. And like I said, since 2018, they have always asked for you to disclose your social media. But now they're asking for this specific group to have their profiles open. And honestly, one of the easiest way to argue for this is 9/11. When you look at the terrorists that flew into New York, into the Twin Towers, they had F1 visas. They were going to, pilot school here in the US. And then in the last few months, they have done a huge push to review the over 50 million visas that have been issued. And already 6,000 have been revoked under the category of people that have committed crimes in the US, DUIs, rape, and also involvement with terrorist organizations. So they're definitely cracking down and using social media for that purpose. And it's not just Brazilians, it's the whole entire world.
Sure. So it is part of the whole procedure for evaluating immigration possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And adding to that, Larissa, that's when we're talking about people who enter the States legally, right?
Mhm.
We also have the ones who find the easy way of getting in, like with a coyote or anything like that, right? That adds to the whole process. If you think about it, okay, we're looking for asylum, we get into the States, great. But then you decide to get polemic, to get into trouble, say bad things about the American government or about the United States in general. So why would you do that if you feel like staying in the country?
Right.
Right. It's so illogical. That makes no sense to me. Of course, it's a very liberal, a very open country, but there is a limit to everything, right? If you push too hard against the way things go there, it makes no sense. There's no reason for you to stay in the country. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is we also find, Simon, when you think about the social media, right? We see this fake marriages, right, Larissa, that you probably know what
Yes.
Right.
you're married to someone for some amount of money and you feel like staying in the country. Okay, great. I'm married to Larissa right now. And then in 5 months, I'm showing, photos on the internet with someone else. And I never see Larissa anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The American government is that limited not to check social media or data about you in general. Where is all this database, right? It's in these
Yes.
big techs, that we see all the time. So of course, especially right now, we see a big connection between these big tech guys, right? Facebook, man, and etc., right? All connected to the American government. So why not helping each other up there? We know that these things probably happen, right? It's not so clear, it's not so obvious, but they play a role when it comes to evaluating, let's say, your online life and see that, okay, probably you're not the best, you're not the suitable person to stay here in this country. So
Absolutely.
speaking of this fake marriages, probably it plays a big role, right, Larissa? I don't know if you face this at work or if you see things around.
I can tell you from personal experience because before I met, I call him my real husband. Before I met my real husband, I was married twice before. My first husband, I suffered domestic violence. And my second husband was a pathological liar manipulator. And when you talk about this matter of fake marriage, I remember that eventually when I separated, I withdrew my petition because I was petitioning for him and everything else. And I remember finding out from a client, okay, that he would tell his girlfriend that I didn't know existed, that he was married to me just for papers. So, and I would question him because his social media, he didn't put anything on it. Like he just existed there, which nowadays, unless you are older or more reserved and you just are not into it, to be in my age bracket and not have anything on social media is a red flag of in itself. So I also had another case in the office that the person called us for a consultation and they're like, oh, doctora, my wife disappeared and we have an interview for immigration. If you tell me that your wife disappeared, I'm going to tell you to call the cops. I'm going to tell you, you have to put out a missing persons report. First of all, if she disappeared on Friday, you're not waiting until Tuesday to talk to anybody about it. If you really love that person, within the first hour that you weren't able to find them on Life 360, or if you weren't able to send them a message and both little marks on WhatsApp lit up, you are going to freak out. A normal person freaks out. So as I'm digging more into the situation, it became super clear that the marriage was completely fraudulent, completely not real. And in this situation, I just straight up don't take the cases. And what people don't understand is they feel, number one, they feel offended that you won't take their case, their fake case. And then they're mad that immigration is not going to give them their green card based on their fake marriage.
Sure.
So in it's this lack of auto responsibility because nobody wants to be responsible for their own lives and just put the blame on the next person. I filed the paperwork. Who cares that I bought my wedding and my marriage? I should have my green card. And I'm sitting here, and it's exactly what I told my ex. I was like, bro, first of all, wow, there is a special place in hell for you. Let's just start there. And two, no. First of all, I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm definitely not about to not really be married to you. And for you to be saying that to other people, it's a huge thing for my reputation, especially because to me, we are really married. So, and then these other clients that have all these upsets because of these unrealistic expectations of their fake marriages, you have to say, hey, this is why the system, in a way, it's cracking down on this, because you guys are doing this jeitinho, which causes all these problems for the overall of everyone else involved. It's the same thing with the people coming in through the border. Listen, I have clients that were legitimately running away from persecution in their countries, running away from gang violence, especially El Salvador before their whole turnaround, you know. But then you have other people coming in and they were, you know, paying loan sharks to come into the country and then to file asylum saying, well, now the loan shark is after me because I'm not paying what I said I would pay for him to cross me the border. So it just becomes this very weird, not realistic parallel universe of it's not my problem, figure it out.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Let me take the chance to ask a question that one of our viewers put in. Marcy is asking, what's the risk that people who are already in the United States illegally, but in the process of getting the green card, what's the risk that they be processed at the moment? I'm sorry, what's the risk that they be deported at the moment?
So they don't necessarily run a risk of being deported. Mm-hmm. But another thing that a lot of people don't know is until you have the green card, you can be detained by immigration at any time. So we've had some clients that have asylum cases pending. They have marriage cases pending that have been at the wrong place, done the wrong thing at the wrong time, and been detained by county police and then transferred to immigration. And now there's a whole process of defending, getting them out on bond from immigration, closing out the case with the state, to then close out the case with immigration so they can continue the normal agency processing for the green card. So it's not as much a risk about getting deported as it is right now about getting detained. And now you have just more expenses just to resolve this complexity of the case.
For the detention itself, you have to resolve the detention first. I see.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Unless, and this is brand new, this just got decided by the Board of Immigration Appeals on Friday. It's terrifying, but if you enter through the border, okay, and let's say that you got married to a U.S. citizen and you're in the process of getting the first part of the application and then your waiver, which is the pardon, and then consular processing, it's a very long process. And during that process, you don't have any rights like a work permit or anything like that. Mm-hmm. If you are arrested in the US right now for anything and sent to immigration, the law now, this crazy decision states that if you enter through the border, if it was yesterday, last month, or 30 years ago, you don't have the right to have the bond decided by a judge, which means that you might be in detention until your whole case gets processed.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's brand new and scary.
I see. And when it gets to deportation, let me connect that with another question. What should you, as an immigration attorney, what should you do and what should you not do when your client gets a deportation notice?
So usually clients only get deportation notices after there has been a hearing. Mm-hmm. So before that, there's even a deportation notice or a deportation order, you need to actually prepare your whole case as if you are getting ready to appeal. That's the best way to present your case before immigration, especially right now, is prepare it to get a denial, to appeal it to the BIA. Now, once that deportation order comes in, it is of the utmost importance right now for you to file a stay of removal, okay? A stay of removal is a procedure that you file straight with ICE, which is the immigration police. They are the ones in charge of enforcing these things so that they freeze up the order while you do whatever you need to do, because or else, even if you file the appeal at the border, they can arrest the client and they can stay in detention until the appeal gets resolved. So one of the biggest errors is literally when people don't file the stay, because now the client is open to being deported at any moment because they do have a deportation order and some of them don't appeal it. Mm-hmm. So once you file the stay, at least you get more time to define like what is our strategy right now with everything that's going on.
Right.
I have something to ask you, Larissa. I know for a fact that in the past, religious temples and schools were places that were kind of protected, and people could not be detained. How do things work right now after this changes,
So as of right now, everywhere is fair game. I think the part that's heartbreaking is because churches and schools have been widely recognized as sanctuaries, for believers, for children. And to have that fear of going to school and maybe and that has happened in certain states, immigration using the kids as baits for their parents, it's cruel and unusual. So it's definitely a practice that has been condoned around the country by human rights activists, immigration activists, and it's definitely something that has been talk of the town, and everybody's kind of pulling in together against it. But as of right now, it's fair game.
You see a light in the end of the tunnel that maybe this might change for some reason, or the way things go, you think that might be something established and kept for a long time?
So I am a firm believer of hope is the last to die. So there is a part of me that gets sad a lot, especially in cases involving children and young people, just because it's my weak spot, because I relate to those situations. There is another side that hopes, wishes, and literally crosses all fingers and toes and hopes that maybe this thing that's happening now is a way to clear a lot of things out, and that maybe something good will come out of all of this in the end, just like, Clinton with an amnesty, especially because the truth of the matter is that the US was built by immigrants and it runs on immigrants. That's the bottom line. Unless you are a Native American, you cannot hit your chest and say, I'm just American. Everybody's everything. When you look at the history of the country, when you look at, where everyone came from, Simon, I don't know if you ever had, to me, a pleasure to go to Ellis Island in New York, which is right next to the Statue of Liberty.
Absolutely.
I tell everybody, if you're American, if you're a foreigner, you have to go there, because that literally gives you the landscape of what modern American was built on. You sit there and you get to see where thousands of immigrants came through to enter into the US. And you have this place where you can see where they all went. And all those people built the America that we know today. It wasn't just the Native Americans. It wasn't just, the English that came, the Pilgrims that were running away. No, we are talking about tons of people from all around the world built what we know today as the United States. So I do believe that after, the everything settles, that something has to come out of this, because that is what America is all about. America is about the immigrants that have brought their best to be the best in one place.
Yeah, very well said, Larissa. And that's a lot like Brazil. There's so much in common between these two countries.
Yeah. And most people don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. They don't remember it,
And it's funny that you made this sorry, it's funny that you made this comparison. I rarely have ever suffered racism in the US. I've actually suffered more racism when I was in Brazil than in the US. But the funny thing is, whenever Americans start talking to me and they find out that I'm Brazilian, they're like, oh, so you're not African American, you're Brazilian. And I'm like, no. First of all, my color is Black, because color is one thing, nationality and country of origin is different, because Americans are slightly ignorant about that. And they always say, no, but you can be African American because, you know, the slaves and the trade. And I'm like, bruh, let me tell you something. First of all, Brazil was discovered before the US, and over 50% of the slave trade went to Brazil. So if we're talking about percentage, I am more African American than you are.
Yeah. And Brazil is in America too. So
thank you.
Exactly. Let's go into a lighter topic, you know, and take a breather from all this. I wanted to ask you a question. I hope you feel comfortable. We know that you have served several artists and celebrities in visa processes for the USA. Can you share any of the most different, unusual, or funny situations you have experienced with a famous client?
So I won't mention the name of the client, but I will mention the situation.
Okay.
First of all, it was my dream to work with this artist because I'm carioca, I'm pagodeira, so I love that kind of music, you know, and it was my dream.
Everybody's trying to guess who it is now.
But what happens is, what a lot of these Brazilian celebrities don't understand is that they're nobody to the US government.
Sure.
So we literally gather all the evidence, and immigration is also not a fail-proof system, okay? They make mistakes, and this person is super famous. They had all sorts of things to prove that, and immigration initially denied the visa.
Oh, wow.
And to explain that immigration made a mistake, to show that we had literally filed everything, all the awards, everything, was one of the biggest headaches of my life. So we gather everything again, the same, file again with USCIS, and get the approval 15 days later. And this is not one of like, oh, funny. No, this was a terrifying story because this was literally my whole heart in one artist. And if there was one person that I did not want to get a denial for, was this person. So being able to revert the situation and get the tour to go on here in the US and get to meet the artist, and like, it was a dream come true through a lot of headaches and a lot of tears and sweat and nightmares, but it got through.
Wow. Happy ending.
Yes, but not all of them are happy endings, because I won't tell you the genre of music for this one, but what a lot of people don't understand is when we talk about artist visas, their criminal record in Brazil does matter. Because when you're talking about artist visas, there are two processes. One is the petition for the category, which is all based on their merits and proof, evidence of what they've done. But after we get the approval, they have to get through the consulate. And when you get through the consulate, that's when they pull your rap sheet and they really look into who you are as a person to see if you have the visa approved or not. And we've had one situation that the client did not tell the truth about certain activities. And even though the petition was approved here, the visa was not issued at the consulate. So that's like super important.
I see. And since you're not going to be able to tell us who this was, maybe you could mention a couple of personalities that you've worked with and what, at least, you know, their areas of work.
Yeah. So I have done visas for the gaming people. If you know League of Legends, we've actually done their whole entire team visas for when they had the World Finals here in the US a couple of years ago. Right. We've done oh my God. Sorry. I'm 3 months pregnant and my brain just went on a total blank. We've done Whindersson Nunes. We've done Capital Inicial, which, by the way, if you've never gone to one of their shows, you're missing out because it's amazing. We've done Nando Reis. We've done Alexandre Pires. We've done, oh my God, David Leonardo. We've done also some sertanejo, which I don't remember because it's not my thing, so I don't remember their names. DJ Dennis, we've also done him. And that's all that my brain is able to retain at this moment.
That's quite a collection. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go on to the next question, and this is about entrepreneurship in the US. Opening a company, starting a business in the US, is that a good way? Is that a good strategy to get a visa?
It's only a good strategy if you talk to an accountant first. So don't just open it, because number one, first we need to determine what kind of visa you're eligible for. So if you are, for example, if you're interested in an L1, which is the, transferring of an executive from a Brazilian company to an affiliate here in the US, it's not just about opening the company, it's about the company in Brazil being the owner of the company in the US. So those nuances. If you're interested in the E2 because you have Portuguese dual citizenship or Spaniard, then it's also important that you don't just open a company because you need to buy an actual business. So there are various details that if you're not sure of what route we're taking, it doesn't matter if you just open the company. It has to be to open a company with a purpose.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Fabio,
I just have a little input here, Larissa. This thing of being a European citizen, right? One thing is being a Latin American and having, certain amount of money to invest in the States, and something else has been a European citizen, right? Could you tell the amount of money that you have to have in hands is a lot different for these two different situations, being a Latin American and being a European, when it comes to investing in the States to get a visa?
So it has nothing to do with the nationality as much as it has to do with the business that you want. So different businesses will require different kinds of investments. And that's what the US will look at when thinking about the visa. Now, for sure, do not invest in the business of less than $100,000. Because in the last, 5-6 years, I've not seen any of those applications get approved. So there isn't a set minimum, but we have seen a trend of over 100,000.
And Larissa, what about real estate? That's for business people, right? But if you're just applying for the visa as a real estate investor, how does that work?
So real estate in itself does not work for visa purposes. Okay. The only way the real estate works for visa purposes is if it's attached to an EB-5 project, which is if you have $1,050 just hanging around, to invest into to invest into the program and also buy a property that is attached to the program, then sure. But that's actually a huge myth that a lot of people think that if they buy property, that it will give them a way to getting a green card, which in fact, the only way that you do that is if it's attached to an EB-5 investment.
Right. Well, not so much luck, right, Fabio?
It's funny because by working with that, since you see that every day, right, all these urban myths disappear because we hear of a certain number here, a certain amount of money there, this specific person invested this much money, but in fact, it has to do with the type of property you have and also the type of business you have and how relevant it is to the American government, right?
Absolutely. And I always tell people, stop listening to your neighbor who has a mechanic, who has a friend who is a baker and did the same thing and it worked. Because one of the most important things about immigration is that literally the law is the same, but it gets applied to people differently because you are different. Your story is different, your curriculum is different, your assets are different. So if you don't understand that it is not a cookie cutter, it literally depends on who you are, then you're about to lose out on money by anybody that comes in the street and tells you, oh, you can apply because my cousin did it.
Yeah, for sure. And that happens a lot, I'm sure.
Unfortunately, too much.
Yeah. And also about that topic, when it comes to relocation of employees, what are the most common legal mistakes that are made in the process of expatriating professionals?
So a lot of companies tend to go with what is called asesoria, but that doesn't necessarily have lawyers that really understand American law behind immigration. So they think that I just need to fill out a form and that's sufficient. And sometimes the category that the company needs is not what they apply for. They might sometimes, by a fluke, get approved. But then once again, when they go to the consulate to get it, it's denied. We actually had a consult with someone who got denied a visa at the consulate. And when they started talking to me about why they got denied, and I went to look at the application, they were entirely in the wrong category. Because when we talk about transferring, you have L1As and you have L1Bs. And L1As are for specifically executives and managers. That's what it's for. If you're a specialized worker that knows the nuances of something specific, you're an L1B, you're not an L1A. So not using the correct category for that transfer can hurt not only the applicant, but especially the company that's waiting for that professional in the US to continue to lead the company on development.
No, wow. Fabio, anything?
No, I'll just like to have a little input on that. When you think about these categories, right, you also have to think about moves that you have in your own life. So you might start as a, expert in a very specific area, you're a very specific professional, but then you might decide later on, since things work well in the States, you have some money, you decide to open up some business. And then first you talk to your accountant, of course, as you mentioned before, right? Changes, and how does that work specifically about this change of category, that you might find when you are in the United States? Because that things change, you get married, you have kids. Once you have American kids, how does that work? Like, what are some possible changes that people might face throughout life when they apply to a category, but then life changes?
So L1s and H1Bs, which are very specific categories for people that are coming in for working in certain areas, they have a very limited lifespan. So it's important for that person that's getting transferred to have a sit down with their supervisor, their boss, to understand what are their plans for them so that they can make decisions as to what would be a strategy to stay in the US if that's what they want. Because there are other categories that it's just a visa for just coming in and out and staying, but won't lead to a green card unless the company itself files for it. So it's very important that during that transitioning period, they even go to an attorney by themselves to understand what options do they have so they know what do I depend on the company for and what can I do on my own. And that makes a huge difference. I had a client that one of them had an O visa, and then the husband had an H-1B that was waiting to get a green card. And there was all this strategy involved to make sure that everything went accordingly so that they could both qualify for the green card at the same time that they needed to qualify for the green card.
Interesting.
Very nice. Guys, I have one last question from the list that we prepared for Larissa, and then I'm going to have a couple more questions from our viewers to close this live talk. Let's get to our question first. What legal demands have arisen in Brazil from changes in American legislation? And how can Brazilian lawyers position themselves in this new scenario of internationalization? I'm not sure if that was clear, Larissa.
Yes, I did understand.
Okay, good.
So from where we stand today, I do believe that the search for a path to getting a green card has increased in Brazil. So people are no longer waiting to get to here to figure things out, which is great. But one of my biggest tips for Brazilian attorneys that want to get involved in that area, that want to be able to give the support to these clients is partner up with immigration American lawyers. Because what you do for these people can literally change their lives and shouldn't be taken lightly. And I say this from someone who, like I said, did not hire a correct lawyer, did not have someone that had my best interests. And there are people in the world that unfortunately, even though they take an oath, to uphold the laws and all these other great things, they don't really mean it. So if you are an attorney in Brazil and you want to get into this world to give the support needed, definitely partner up. There are a lot of people also that think that, if I specialize in international law, I'll be able to do immigration. No, you won't, because international law is not immigration law. International law is international law. Mm-hmm. So it's a misconception to think that because I do this, then I can do it all. And you end up doing a disservice to your clients because you're touching things that you don't know how to touch. And like I said before, you're dealing with people's whole entire futures. One of the things that I'm very aware whenever I deal with clients is that my actions can literally change not only my clients' lives, but all the generations that come after. So realizing how important it is, touching these subject matters, dealing with these kinds of things makes you have your ethical duties in the forefront when you're dealing with these clients and dealing with your due diligence to make sure that you're doing the best and not just getting money.
For sure.
I was also thinking about something here, Larissa. Of course, you are an inspiration for many Brazilians to think of, moving to the States or working as a lawyer in the United States. But we also have to take into account that some universities in Brazil now, they have some partnerships with specific states in the United States. And you might be able to even take the bar exam in specific states, right? I don't know if you heard cases like that. Now I'm taking a doctorate here in Brazil. And I know for a fact that the university I study at, they have this partnership with Florida, New York, and I think another state on the West Coast. And I talked to the dean of the university. He told me that he's collecting these partnerships, just like those soccer comic books that you have, get a sticker. Okay, so
I love those. I collect them every time. I just did one from the FIFA Club World Cup. I love it.
And it's so nice to see this connection that we Brazil have with the United States.
Yeah.
Of course, possibilities are being narrowed down in this new moment that we're facing right now. But that's not a moment for us, for many people, to give up on the idea of living the American dream. It's just a way of, making them being resilient and think, okay, if I do the right things, why not choosing the States as an option to even work as a lawyer in the United States? I don't know if you saw cases like that in the United States, but I've seen quite a few here of people moving to the States and being able to work as lawyers there too.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you something else. And whatever, y'all can judge me. I'm Vasco, okay? And one of the things that cheering for Vasco my whole entire life has taught me, and I tell people this all the time, it has prepared me to come to the US and battle my way to the top, is you just gotta keep showing up no matter what happens. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes you lose again, and then you win. And those wins are so much more sweeter because if you're a Flamengo, you're way used to having an easy life. And then when you lose, you just cry and get depressed and you don't know how to continue life. So it's important to know that, like you said, even though it's getting hard, it's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that we have from our viewer, João Bonat, is exactly on top of that. He asked, what would be the best way to validate his diploma in the United States to be able to work there?
So honestly, it will depend on the state, because the name of the country is United States, but the states are not so united. And you literally need a bar, which is the equivalent of the OAB, for each state that you practice in, unless you practice federal law. So as far as how that would happen, it will depend on, number one, where could you do that? With what state could you have the easiest way of doing that? Do you want to practice in that state? And if you don't want to practice in the state, you want to look into the reciprocity agreement with other states. For example, Florida is very hard because they don't have reciprocity with other states. So if you have a license from a different state, Florida doesn't give you a way to get a Florida bar just because of the other state. Now, I just got my Washington, D.C. bar because Washington, D.C. allows, if you have been practicing law in a different district, in a different place for more than 3 years, you can apply by it's a motion to have your DC bar, and you have to go through a process of literally they check your tax income, they check your debt, they check if you owe hospital bills, they check your whole entire life, but you won't have to do another test, which is the bar is awful. I would not do it again. So to be able to have this path of getting the bar that way, then DC opens up also to New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So the first thing is to figure out, okay, if I don't want to have to go to school, what states in the US will give me that bridge? Do I want to live in that state? And if I don't, can I use that as a starting point to then move to where I want to be?
Sure. Makes sense.
I also have a suggestion, Simon. Maybe this viewer could go and talk to the dean of the university where he studies at, if he's taking his master's or his doctorate. I know for a fact that here in Sao Paulo, I'm taking my doctorate at a private university. I'm not giving the name because it doesn't make any sense. But I talked to the guy, and he mentioned that. So many things, and many times people just don't know it because they don't ask. Can you be given that somewhere? Not in the competition. But the thing is, not searching on the internet might help, but talking to university deans could be the best.
Excellent. Yeah. The last question that we have, guys, it actually relates to this and the topic we talked about before on immigration processes. He says, does the American government have access to Brazilians' criminal history?
So, fun thing. When you apply for a green card, okay, if you are applying through consular processing, then it's way easier to access because the consulate is in Brazil. Okay. Right. Now, if you are inside of the US there is a questionnaire on the green card application that asks about your criminal history. Now, if you lie, which I don't recommend at all, they can find out, but it's harder because they don't have a straight plug into, unless you're in Interpol, then don't apply for anything. But if it was something local, they don't have direct access, but that will always be in the back of your head, because as you travel in and out of the country, if you have something pending in Brazil and you have a green card and you go there, that could trigger other things that you might not like. So please don't be a criminal. And if you are applying for the green card, tell the truth. If it was something minor, it'll be all resolved. But if you're a murderer, you're for sure getting denied.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, guys. This brings us to the end of our live talk. Larissa, it was a real pleasure, and we're so happy and proud to have had you with us. You can see that you're not only a great professional, you're a great communicator too.
Thank you.
And Fabio, thank you so much as well. Fabio, we are proud that you are our legal English teacher. That makes us proud too, and I'm taking the opportunity to say it live and in public, if we haven't said it enough already, right? Okay.
It's always nice being here, Simon. We learned so much, because it doesn't really matter how long you work in an area, right? You always have something to exchange. You always have something to share and to learn. You know, if you have this open mind to learn things from people around you, it could be a lawyer, it could be just a regular worker from a different field. That's the way it should be all the time, right? I've worked with you, Simon, before as a teacher. You know, after that, I graduated as a lawyer, did my master's, taking my doctorate. I'm very proud to compare myself to what I was in the past, because I don't compete with anyone but myself.
That's true.
Yep.
Very true. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much again. Thank you to all of our viewers for your participation and your questions.
Thank you so much.
To do this again sometime soon.
Yes, for sure. Anytime, just call.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good night, people.